every attorney general could have done that. I was, until very recently, the youngest elected attorney general in the country. And then Virginia elected somebody who I like otherwise, but did take that title. It's so good to see you all. This has been on my calendar for a while. I've been looking forward to this. Very kind introduction from Stan, who is a neighbor of mine in our neighborhood, and appreciate all of you for having been so kind to my family. My wife has been the marketing director at the JCC in Charlotte for 12, 13 years. She still is. She works remotely. And so when we moved here after the election, we came here. You were all extremely kind. You've been extremely kind to my children who go to Hebrew school here. I was told last night by Owen that this week is like a mock wedding. They have to learn how to do a Jewish wedding. Apparently this is very different, such that they need training. Great, all for it. And thank you for allowing me to spend a little bit of time, really on behalf of the North Carolina Department of Justice. In North Carolina, the Attorney General runs the NCDOJ. This is the responsibility with which you entrusted me after the election. You essentially hired me to be your attorney. Not in all things. You will never get a bill. But with a certain set of responsibilities, a certain set of threats, you hired me to defend you from those. And as an asset, you entrust to me this amazing institution that is NCDOJ, of which, just as North Carolinians, you should be incredibly proud. You don't know a whole lot about this place, I would gather, or the fact that it has such a good reputation among the 50 states, but it truly does. By the way, I should mention, 1,000 employees at NCDOJ, many of whom were raised here and are still members here, including Bob Zellinger, who's my criminal bureau chief, one of the highest ranking leaders. We have, as I said, 1,000 people at NCDOJ. We have 10,000 active cases. We're incredibly busy on your behalf. You see our cases when they happen to make news, but only 1 in 100 will be making news, 1 in 200, maybe. We are just flat out busy. We're the largest law firm in the state. We also run the 3 major crime labs in the state where they do the DNA testing and the bloody footprint testing and all that stuff. And we do the 2 main police academies, we call our justice academies, do most of the law enforcement training. So on your behalf, we're just doing a ton of work. And I wish that you could see more of these people, these public servants who work for you, because you would love them. And you would be so proud of the fact that some of them have dedicated their entire professional careers to serving you. So let me get into some of the cases that we've been working on. Some of these might ring familiar, and some of them I'm sure will not. Again, 10,000, so I have to heavily curate this list. Some very classic Attorney General things we do on your behalf, like consumer protection. Number 1 is going after robocalls.
Ooh, yeah.
We get as a state 200 million a month. We're a top 5 state in the country because we have a larger than average share of retirees. And here's the way it works. I've had to learn like the mechanics of robocalls to figure out the angles of attack here. By the time your phone rings, that call has passed through about 6 or 7 different chains. Each one of those is a different company. The last company, that's the one you pay a monthly bill to, AT&T, Verizon. But there are 6 or 7 before that you've never heard of. And those guys are passing along robocalls even though they know better.
Mm-hmm.
They're turning a blind eye because they're paid by volume. Their incentive is to just pass all these through. So we are going after essentially the middlemen. Most of these calls are originating overseas. I've got jurisdictional limitations there, but I don't have jurisdictional limitations over these companies domestically who are doing this thing when they know they shouldn't. So I told my team, hey, I want to go after these middleman companies, give me a list. And they said, sir, we can do that, but just so you know, there's going to be a lot of people. This is kind of like whack-a-mole. And I said, let's whack a bunch of moles. And so they gave me a list of 36 companies. We sent letters to all of them. We said, you have 30 days to get right. And then I put a video on social media where I put all of their names up. And I said, hi, these companies, as of today, you have 30 days. And they got right. As it turns out, you can just threaten companies as attorney general that are breaking the law. And a lot of them will just stop. It was a good lesson for me in the use of the soft power that comes with this office. The reason I have that, and this gets back to the first thing I said about the reputation of this office has been run very well for many years. I inherited an office that had built what I think of as deterrent level credibility. And I was told this by other attorneys general when I met them after the election. I was at this conference and I was meeting, the guy from Rhode Island, the guy from Georgia, and he basically said, hey, listen, just so you know, North Carolina is seen a little bit differently. When we do these joint lawsuits with a bunch of AGs, when North Carolina signs, that means something a little bit more. Because you guys don't go after the quick headline. You guys sign if there is evidence that the law has been broken. And it adds a certain level of credibility. And then one of them put it to me like this. He said, kid, you just inherited a Ferrari, so don't crash it. I take it very seriously. So what else are we involved in? Robocall is up there. Fentanyl. Listen, we made a lot of progress on this. My predecessor, whom you may know, had a legacy accomplishment in going after the company and the family that owned that company that started the opioid crisis. It's called Purdue Pharma. And they invented an opioid that they said wasn't addictive. And it kicked off in the 90s this huge addiction crisis. If you remember, we called it the prescription pill crisis. And it took us like 15 years to crack down on it. And when we did, all these people were still addicted, so they hit the street looking for their fix, and they found heroin. And for a few years in North Carolina, we had a heroin crisis. And then, heroin was replaced with synthetic heroin. And we call synthetic heroin fentanyl. So we're really on the third stage of this crisis that was kicked off in the 90s. Josh did a great job in going after these companies, got over $1 billion for North Carolina to go directly into addiction treatment programs all across the state. But it is still the leading cause of death for people my age and younger. We lose an average of 6 people a day in North Carolina. We were able to get more money from that company, that was good, but we're also going after the money laundering. This entire thing, fentanyl trafficking, is propped up off of international money laundering. And there are a handful of apps on your phone, one in particular called WeChat, that is an encrypted app that became really the go-to destination for cartels to get their money laundered, to do fentanyl. So we brought together some AGs in both parties, and we went to WeChat, and we basically said, listen, you need to be more responsive to law enforcement. You need to help us with these investigations, because right now you're not. And we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And a lot of my conversations as AG begin with, we can do this the easy way. And after several months, they said, we'd like to do this the easy way. And they agreed to a set of commitments that will now allow us to actually do real investigation and create some deterrent level effect in that area. That's good, that's some progress there. There are some cases I know that you haven't heard of. Those two that I just talked about, robocalls and fentanyl, they make a lot of news. But then there's some consumer protection stuff that is just trying to help people who have been wronged. And actually, maybe you have heard of this one a little, because you're in the triangle, and it made a lot of news when we got involved. Imagine how badly you have to screw up as a wedding photographer to get my attention.
Yeah.
We have one who's local. We have over 200 brides who have complained about this wedding photographer not getting their photos back, not showing up, taking money, and then not providing the service. So we have taken this company to court. And I can't quite tell you what the outcome is yet. I think I know what it's about to be. But the whole idea is that, yes, NCDOJ should be here for the biggest of threats, but it should also stop to help people who are just mistreated. They deserve a remedy as much as anybody else. And to that point, I was talking to my consumer protection team the other day, and they said, hey sir, just so you know, they wanted to give me a sense of the variety of things that they hear about from the public. They said the other day we got a handwritten letter from a man that said he had just bought a can of pork and beans, and that it had beans but no pork. And they were telling me kind of as a joke. And I said, bring the letter to me. And they brought me the letter, sure enough, handwritten letter, and the man had included the label from the can, and he had circled where it said pork on the label. So I called the company, and I got some poor executive on the phone. And I said, I assure you this is not a prank call. I am the Attorney General from North Carolina. And I think you owe this man a can of pork and beans. And he was great. He said, absolutely, sir, we will send him a coupon for a free can of pork and beans. And I said, I appreciate that, but he didn't buy a coupon. He bought a can. Can you send him a can? He said, we'll send him a case. I said, thank you very much. Because look, we're doing some big things, but to that guy, that's the biggest thing. There's a principle at stake. He was treated unfairly. And either we live in a state where the wheels of justice turn for that man, or we don't. And I want him to know that we do. I want everybody to know. Because if I'm willing to stop for that, you know I'll do the big stuff. We all will. And we do a ton of big stuff. We have won, or I guess I should say more accurately, protected $1.6 billion of your tax money that you already sent to DC that they tried to keep, that they tried to cancel. FEMA, $200 million that they tried to keep. We took them to court and we won. Education Department, $165 million they tried to keep. We took them to court and we won. NIH, over $200 million that they tried to keep, that you sent them. We took them to court and we won. We have done this over and over and over. It's added up to about $3 million a day since I've been Attorney General of your tax money. Y'all, we haven't lost any of those cases. The reason we haven't lost those cases is because we take an objective approach for when to go to court. When I was running for this job, I said, listen, I understand there's an R or a D next to this job on the ballot. That's the way the state has set it up. This is a law enforcement job, and you want it done in a nonpartisan way. This job is fundamentally different than other jobs. What does that mean in practice for me about how I make a decision, about who I take to court? It means it has to be a nonpartisan decision-making process, an objective set of criteria, which are 3. 1, did you break the law? Did it hurt our state? And can I prove both of those things? If we check all 3 boxes, we're probably going to take you to court, and we're probably going to win. That's why we have a very good track record, because it's an objective, just the facts, just the law kind of approach. I would love to tell you about 20 other things. We just won a big case against Ticketmaster. I don't know if you saw that a couple of weeks ago. That was a great one. I think we have 6 or 7 other antitrust cases that we are working on right now or have recently won. Antitrust has become a big part of state AG's portfolio, bigger than it used to be. US DOJ was really the leader in that space. antitrust cases, phenomenally complicated, phenomenally resource intensive, because imagine the resources dedicated on the other side. Like this Ticketmaster case. They knew this could be for all the marbles. They threw everything at it. A huge bank of attorneys, the most highly paid in the entire country. And for each of our antitrust cases, that's what's on the other side. But when we talk about affordability, big issue these days, so much of that fight is outside of public view, in that you're getting ripped off, you just don't quite know how. Like with Ticketmaster, it felt like, well, I put this in my cart online, the ticket was $120. And then I go to check out, and it's $180. I know I'm getting ripped off. I just don't quite know how. So it's our job to go to the jury and say, here's how. When Ticketmaster combined with Live Nation a few years ago, they gained control over all three levers of the entertainment industry: the ticketing, the venues, and the promotion. If you control all three, you have total dominance, and you can go to the venues and say, if you don't accept our artists, then they're not going to come, none of them. Then you can go to the artists and say, if you don't accept these venues, you don't get to tour anywhere. You can go to both of them and say, if you don't let us do the ticket sales, then none of this, and that's what they were doing. When you spell it out like that to a jury, the opaque becomes clear, and what you get is a unanimous verdict on all counts, which is what we got in that case. So I think I'm running a little bit short on time. You are going to have a wonderful day. This institution has been, as I said, incredibly kind to me. Tikkun Olam, obviously very important to all of you. I like to think we do some Tikkun Olaming ourselves at NCDOJ. And by the way, one of my staffers told me not to tell the pork and beans story. I thought about it. I said, I think it'll be okay. Thank you all. See you soon.